Вітаю вас на Ніна Україна. Ми сьогодні будемо дивитися 40 фактів про Україну разом з Еріком, а також разом з Джесікою. Зараз Джесіка і я будемо дивитися 40 фактів про Україну, а також відео Dorosh, Ukraine is my home. Вам сподобається? Hi Jessica, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm good. What are your general interests in life?
I like playing tennis, which is how I met you. And I'm a musician too. I play cello and string instruments, guitar, violin, stuff like that.
We never had a musician on my channel yet, so it's really exciting. Hi Eric, how are you?
Greetings.
Greetings. Tell us a little bit about yourself. You're the new guest on my channel.
Wow, I'm flattered to be here. Thank you very much, Tina. I'm from Chicago. I'm 55. I grew up during the 70s and 80s. I have a different perspective on life than a lot of people who I meet these days, which is interesting. It's fascinating how different the world is now. I'm also interested in seeing how that relates to what we're doing today. This should be fascinating, I'm sure.
I was impressed when I met you. I realized that you are curious about Ukraine, and I think I've never met a person who was so excited to hear that I'm from Ukraine and was curious to hear more. That's why I was very eager to show you more stuff about Ukraine. And before we do that, але перед цим спитаємо Еріка, що він знає про Україну. So what do you know about Ukraine?
My first impressions of it were from Radio Kiev, which later became Radio Ukraine International.
In 80s, you said?
Late 70s.
Late 70s, okay.
Yeah. You can still hear podcasts in English.
So what do you know about Ukraine?
Oh, well, at the time it was part of the Soviet Union. Brezhnev was in power in those days, I remember. Ukraine, I always knew, had always wanted to be a satellite entity, not a part of the Soviet Union. But
how did you feel that?
I'm so glad you asked that. And I don't actually know, because they weren't allowed to transmit it over the airwaves. I don't know if there was a way that they transmitted their element of the truth. Maybe I heard it from other sources and then was maybe able to put it together through things that I heard over the air on Radio Kiev. But it was pretty obvious the Ukraine really didn't want to have anything to do with that kind of imperialism. We have our own kind here in the US, but we won't go into that.
What do you know about Ukraine?
I know that it is close to Russia. I know that it is in Eastern Europe. And I know that people sometimes say the Ukraine instead of Ukraine. I don't know.
It used to be before 1991 when it was a part of Soviet Union. Grammatically, when something is a part of something larger, you use THE, but since Ukraine is an independent country, it's not correct anymore.
Oh, okay. So it's Ukraine now?
Just Ukraine,
okay.
yeah.
Okay, good. Then I'm saying the right thing.
So do you know a little bit about the history of Ukraine, like the periods in the history that Ukraine was independent before, you know, the existence of Soviet Union?
Yeah, I know about the revolution of 1917 enough to get an idea that it was an all-encompassing takeover.
What about before, like?
Very little, actually.
Very little?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I would love to know a lot more. So that's why I'm here, and you told me not to do any research.
Yeah. Я сказала Еріку нічого не гуглити до цього відео. And the capital of Ukraine?
Oh gosh, I have no idea. Ukraine City?
Kyiv? Kyiv?
Oh, okay. Kiev?
Russian version to pronounce is Kiev, but Ukrainian version, what I think is a correct version, is Kyiv.
Kyiv. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Recently, officially, there was a change, international change from Kiev to Kyiv, so that it's like in Ukrainian, it's like Kyiv instead of Kiev.
I have actually seen in literary circles the Y spelling.
Yes. Yeah.
That's always been around, and I was aware of it even when I was a teenager.
So how old is Kyiv? When do you think it was founded as a city?
Ooh, you mean taking a guess at it?
Yeah.
Oh my God, that'd be a long time ago, because the Caucasus Mountains area, that whole area is ancient. Wow. Oh, this is a tough question.
Just
take a guess?
something, yeah.
1100s?
5th century.
Ooh, way back.
Yeah.
Oh, I was way off. No, that's embarrassing. Strike one.
You'll hear more. Yeah, you'll hear more about history of Ukraine. But and the last quiz question before we move to the videos is: guess the population of Ukraine right now. How many million?
Whoa. Oh wow.
Okay, let's wait a second. So there's Ukrainians who are said that you don't know the details about it.
Oh, this is a tough one because that's a fairly large area.
Actually, Ukraine is the largest European country by territory.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's larger than Texas, isn't it?
It's about the size of Texas.
Okay.
I can give you a hint if you want.
No, I'll take a stab at it.
Okay.
All right, let's try 60 million.
I give you one more hint. It's roughly same as population of California, if you know the population of California.
Oh, all right. Let's try 100 million.
40.
I went the wrong way. It's really that low.
In the 90s, it was 52 million, and now it's between 40, 44 million.
Yeah, did the population really get older, or did they start to leave?
I think it's both, but I don't have exact answer for that, unfortunately.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So now we'll show you 40 facts about Ukraine, and let's see, maybe you've heard some of those, maybe no, but that will give you maybe some overview about our country, about the culture, about the history, and about art as well, and about architecture. So there will be a lot of stuff in there.
Okay.
If you can, I don't have cards with me, which I usually have.
You can tell I didn't do my research.
Yeah, but if a fact you know, so you can say, I know that, and if you had no idea, just say, whoa, like I had no idea about that, okay? It's just to understand how new those facts are for you. I think it's very interesting for everyone.
This sounds interesting. Okay. I'm ready.
Okay.
Top 40 amazing facts about Ukraine. Ukraine is a country in Eastern Europe.
Oh, you knew that!
Kiev is its capital and largest city.
It's an old version.
It has a total area of 603,550 square km. Ukrainian is its official language. Its official currency is Ukrainian hryvnia. Its 7 land-bordering countries are Poland, Slovakia, Hungary, Romania, Moldova, Russia, and Belarus. Religion plays a strong influential role in shaping Ukrainian music, literature, and architecture. With these 40 interesting facts about Ukraine, let's learn more about its history, culture, people, food, and more.
Our version of
1. According to Ukrainian folk tales, Kiev boasts up to 3 official witch gathering places. They share the name Lisa Hora, Bold Mountain. 2. Weaving with handmade looms is still used in some parts of the country, including Krupov, located in Rivne Oblast.
No.
3. Unlike many cultures around the world, Ukrainians wear wedding rings on the right hand, not the left.
You know that?
4. O Sol Mio, the world-famous song was composed in the country. 5. Ukrainian Romanticism started developing in the 1830s. Romanticist poet-painter Taras Shevchenko played a central role in this regard. He is widely regarded as the father of national revival. 6. Commemorated on June the 23rd, Ivana Kupala Day is one of Ukraine's most fun traditional celebrations. Boys and girls join hands in pairs and jump over a fire in a purification ritual. Locals believe that when a couple skips the fire without losing grip of each other, their love is destined to last a lifetime. 7. Vyshyvanka is the Ukrainian national costume. It is decorated with ornamental hand-woven embroidery featuring floral detail. Both women and men wear the costume on various occasions. 8. Kiev is widely regarded as the country's spiritual capital. Pilgrims regularly travel long distances to visit the Sofia Kievska Church and St. Michael's Golden Domed Monastery. 9. The popular Easter egg tradition originated in Ukraine. Originally, the eggs were patterned using wax and dye. The wax was eventually removed, leaving an impressive pattern with dashing colors. 10. The world's longest musical instrument also originates from Ukraine. The pipe piece is aptly named trembita. 11. Ukrainian civilizations date back to 4800 BC. The country is located in an area where Tripolian and Scythian civilizations thrived. 12. Thousands of Jews were offered protection by Ukrainian religious leaders during World War II. One of the leaders, Metropolitan Andrei Sheptitsky, was honored in 2013 by the Anti-Defamation League for his humanitarian role. The Jews found refuge in monasteries and Ukrainian homes. 13. Ukraine is home to several archaeological sites that were previously Neanderthal settlements. The settlements feature a mammoth bone dwelling and is viewed as a possible location for the domestication of horses. The Molodova sites date back to 43,000 to 45,000 BC. 14. The world's first constitution was drafted and introduced in 1710 by Ukrainian Hetman Pyle Orlik. The document was aimed at introducing the separation of powers. It outlined the responsibilities and rights of both citizens and government. 15. Russia and Austria showed very little interest in Ukraine in the 19th century. The country was predominantly rural. The situation changed as Ukrainian modernization and urbanization expanded. 16. Catherine the Great and some of her successors advocated increasing German immigration into Ukraine following the Russo-Turkish War in the late 1700s. The primary objective was to dilute the country's demographic, which was characterized by a dominant Turk population. 17. Stalin, Churchill, and Roosevelt met at the Yalta Conference in 1945, which was hosted by Ukraine. The meeting was aimed at charting the way forward in relation to the organization of post-war Europe. The venue, Lividia Palace, is now a museum. 18. In 1986, Ukraine witnessed the world's worst nuclear power plant disaster. The tragedy occurred at the Chernobyl plant located in the northern part of the country. The area has since been declared an exclusion.
I took a study of that for myself. In fact, 5 or 6 months ago, I watched every video on Chernobyl I could find on YouTube.
Wow. And
what it was like now. And it's still deserted. And it's...
Did you watch a movie, Chernobyl movie from HBO?
No, I didn't see that.
It was released last year. It's like HBO series and it's very, very, very well done. Yeah, many Ukrainians actually even demanded my reaction. But it's hard because I cannot use that video. And it's it's like several hours of film. But I think you can watch it at home or something. You would enjoy it a lot.
I remember right after that there was a whole shipment of red wine from Ljubljana, which is Yugoslavia, and there was fear that some of the radiation might have found its way to into the grapes. I ended up buying a whole case of that wine. It was delicious.
When?
I'm still here. That was back in the late 80s.
So did you learn about that after you bought it or before you bought it?
After.
Okay, if you found out before, maybe you wouldn't have bought it.
The area has since been declared an exclusion zone. The disaster and declaration led to the emergence of several ghost towns.
Yes.
The area attracts multitudes of tourists despite the high levels of
2
radiation.
hours by car from Kyiv.
19. Kiev boasts the hero city status, which was conferred by the Soviet Union in honor of its fierce resistance to the Nazis in 1941. The Germans surrounded the city in what became known as the Battle of Kiev. 20. The country shares ties with Western Europe that go back 1,000 years. Anna, the daughter of Grand Prince Yaroslav, helped pave the way for the strengthening of relationships when she became the Queen Consort of France in 1051. She played a huge role in exposing French people to Eastern culture. 21. Borscht and vareniki are some of the most popular traditional Ukrainian dishes.
You tried any of those?
22.
You tried both borscht and vareniki?
The borscht, yes.
Borscht, where did you try that?
Chicago. Plenty of Ukrainians live there.
In Ukrainian village?
There's something of that there, yeah.
I've been in a Ukrainian village in Chicago. Did you try it there?
Yeah, when I was a kid. We traveled around, my grandparents, my mother and me, my sister. Yeah, I really miss those days. It was much easier to park in Chicago in those days. Yeah, I'll tell you that. These days, if you wanted to go to a Ukrainian restaurant in that particular sector, you're probably going to walk 1.5 miles just to get in the place.
I took a bus. Last summer I spent a month in Chicago. I used to take bus to go there, or Uber.
Oh yeah. They've got a great Chinatown there too, actually.
Тризуб, так називається ресторан української їжі у Chicago. And vareniki are like dumplings, and they can have either meat or mushrooms inside, or it could be like berries or cottage cheese, sweet cottage cheese inside. If you try Chinese dumplings, maybe it's a little bit similar but less liquid, because Chinese dumplings are like have a lot of liquid inside.
Yeah, okay. Wow, that's interesting. I'd like to try all these varieties.
It's home to the highest number of cafes per capita in the world. It boasts up to 1,500 establishments.
No,
23.
Lviv is in western Ukraine, and it's a very beautiful city. In top 3 of my favorite cities is Kyiv, Lviv, and Odessa. Have you heard of Odessa?
Odessa, that's where Vladimir Horowitz was born, I believe. So there's a great Ukrainian for you.
Yeah, we should learn more about him.
Він був би щасливий, Якби молоді виконавці успадкували, ні, не його манеру гри, вона неповторна, але його відношення до музики.
My favorite pianist of all time, I would say.
You know, his name, Vladimir, is like in Russian. In Ukrainian would be Volodymyr.
Yeah, I didn't know that. Right?
Some names sound a little bit different in Ukrainian and Russian.
Uh-oh, here comes the McDonald's.
The McDonald's,
to take over.
yeah.
Oh, God.
23. McDonald's in Kiev is reportedly one of the busiest in the world.
Jeez, whoa.
24. Ukrainians love drinking horilka, which is a local variant of the famed vodka.
I'd like to try
Locals often flavor this national drink with chili pepper to give it a bit more punch.
Chili pepper.
25. Locals also enjoy drinking stewed fruit, kompot, which is a non-alcoholic sweet beverage. It is prepared by cooking different types of fruits, such as gooseberries, rhubarb, strawberries, apples, and sour berries, among others. The drink is often flavored using spices, particularly in winter months when it is served hot. 26. Ukraine has the distinction of being the geographical center of Europe.
It's like very
27.
Yeah,
it features the deepest metro station in the world, which was built in 1960. 28. Kiev also features the shortest main city street with a length of only 1.2 kilometers. 29. The average life expectancy is around 71.48 years. 30. Ukraine has the fourth highest literacy rate in the world.
Really? Wow.
31.
Impressive.
Native Ukrainians consist of roughly 77.8% of the population. 32. Although Ukrainians are hospitable, they seldom smile in public. 33. Locals boast a distinctive ethnocultural identity, which is expressed through music and folk oral literature.
It means they
34.
like you.
Ukrainians are accustomed to energetic,
We'll watch some
fast-paced
of
folk
those
stage dancing,
later,
which replaced traditional
later.
styles.
Thank you, yeah.
35. Locals designed the world's heaviest aircraft, the An-225 Maria. 36. According to the Traveler's Digest, Kiev is home to the most beautiful women in the country. 37. The invention of the first gas lamp took place in Lviv. 38. The country is the second largest in Europe after Russia.
Really? Huh.
39. Ukraine hosts
If you
up to
consider
7
Russia,
UNESCO
Europe,
World
I mean, part
Heritage
of Russia
sites,
and Europe,
including the
but
primeval
most
beach forests
is
of the
in Asia.
Carpathians. 40. It has one of the largest armies in Europe.
What do you think about this interesting fact?
Wow, that was a lot to throw at me at once, but I think it's fascinating that I didn't know so many of these.
Wow. Something surprised me, like that it's the biggest country in Europe. I think it would be more mentioned and talked about more with it being so big. But you usually hear history of is like Western Europe. So I don't think I learned much Eastern Europe history in school at all.
But in school you were taught some
Western European history, like we learned about the wars and we would hear about like France and Germany and Spain a lot, but we didn't hear much about Ukraine or Poland or anything like that. So I thought everything was just really pretty, like so much prettier than America. Like all the buildings and the clothing. I thought it was a really beautiful looking country. I'm kind of surprised that it was like a refuge for Jewish people during the Second World War. Like I never learned anything about that or heard anything about that.
The one regarding the Jewish migration to that country, that makes sense now because there were several notable artists or musicians also with Jewish names, Mr. Horowitz. That kind of explains for me how that actually took place.
Have you been to Europe?
No, I have not. Even though both sides of my ancestry are from Europe.
Where from?
Scotland and Black Forest area of Germany. We arrived sometime after about 1890.
1890, okay.
So recent arrivals, generally speaking.
So in Europe you've been to Germany for a year, right? Did you travel a little bit around Europe?
A little bit, yeah. I went to Poland. I was only there for like a couple days. Turkey for 10 days. Spain for a couple days. And Egypt for 2 weeks. Yeah,
cool.
so yeah.
So if you were to name maybe some 2 things that now are caved in your memory after watching this video, what would be those be?
You know, the thing that bothered me about this was that the McDonald's is the busiest location. And I thought, wow, that's sad, because everything you pointed to is such beautiful history. I've always said, and we had a discussion earlier about this, that American culture has taken over way too many things around the globe, and some of it has been imposed, and I don't know why foreign countries would want to assimilate. I never really got it.
And get so much influence and kind of try to be proud by having some stuff from the US.
I hate to say that, because everything else you showed me was fantastic, but the thing that I centered on was the McDonald's, and it's because, well, you know, there's this English chef, Keith Floyd, whose mission he just determined was to go around the world and actually undo that mess of,
oh, really? Wow.
of Western restaurant chains destroying culinary culture around the globe.
Yeah.
He visited every place he could to try to preserve that culture.
I mean, I think one of the reasons, like, before 90s, Ukraine and other Soviet Union countries, they didn't have a chance to taste any foreign food. And then after Soviet Union collapsed, mid-90s, some American chains started to open up in Ukraine, and it was like, whoa, it was like the window to foreign world, because no one was able to travel before, you know? You ate your local food your whole life, and here is, without going to other country, you can try the kind of food they're eating. And the first McDonald's that was opened, there are still like old videos and archives, and there is like huge line of people waiting, because this is something I guess you see a lot in the movies and you hear a lot about, but many people cannot afford to travel. Like average salary in Ukraine, what do you think it is in 1 month?
I suppose it's probably less than here, but then again, I might be surprised by this answer. I've been wrong on every other one.
Okay, no, you can try.
Okay, maybe 1,500.
It's about $300. $300. Yeah.
A month.
A month. Yeah. Like that money is hardly sufficient for food, you know, just for food. Buying a home is something unachievable for a big chunk of population, and traveling, of course, even like going to neighboring countries, going to a country like the US, like for most of Ukrainians is something that they would never be able to afford, you know. But at the same time, I agree with you. While it's fun, you know, to try out cuisines of all the countries around the world, it's nice not to forget about your own cuisine and embrace it.
At the very least, it should be, even if it's not supported by actual restaurant owners and people who have the capacity to present it, it should at least be recorded for the annals of history. Otherwise, you'll lose that forever. The other thing that bothers me about the modern world is everything's getting digitalized. We lose the ability to read these electronic forms of storage. We lose all that history. Or if you know, the sun throws an EMP at us and wipes out all the electronic devices. That's another concern. That hasn't happened in our lifetime, but it's likely to eventually.
Have you heard of conflict between Ukraine and Russia, which was like in the last 6 years?
A little tiny bit, like once. Yeah. I gotta think for a second what this person said. It seemed like Ukraine maybe wanted independence or something. That was the main thing.
So it started in 2014, and Russia wanted to take a part of Ukraine. So there is this Crimea. It's a peninsula in the south of Ukraine. So this is peninsula, which is very big. It's like Florida in the US almost. This is a great spot for vacations. Like I went there 5 times. Russia decided in 2014 to claim that this is part of Russia.
Oh,
which is in 2014, you know, which is like not 1800 or anymore, you know.
Like, okay.
And the thing is that historically there are many ethnical Russians there, and because Ukraine didn't have very strong economy at that moment, and we had issues with our government, they almost were like very seduced by Putin and his nice offers, and they unfortunately in the referendum they voted that they are okay in like joining Russia. So now Russia wants to take the eastern part of Ukraine, and it's been like for 6 years. It's going on until now, and it's very tough time. I mean, it's basically country is in a kind of war state for over 5 years, and it's a big uncertainty. The families have to move from there, or like to send their some families have to send their children away from there. It's of course huge expenses for country's budget. People try to support financially soldiers who go there, and because many people like died, you know, trying to defend the territory. So this is something that is going on, and I think that's partly also why, I mean, I'm trying to like draw a little bit more attention to Ukraine, because Ukraine is not that powerful country that can like protect itself from like a huge country like Russia, you know.
Yeah, that's so sad. That's awful.
In general, if to talk about like Ukrainian culture, because we became independent in 1991, like after Soviet Union was collapsed, there were periods in history when Ukraine was independent, but before that you're always a part of like some other country which, you know, comes over there and says you, oh, we don't like Ukrainian poets, we don't like Ukrainian musicians, and they send them and like kill them, or like send them to some camps, you know, where they have to, you know, work in some northern Russia or somewhere, you know, to do crazy stuff. Our culture was always suppressed historically by other countries, and it's like only now that we like finally can express and like not maybe being afraid. I think every country deserves equal amount of attention, and every country has something unique to show.
Yeah, we don't really have the same problem here. Yeah, that's awful.
Other people want to come to the US, and the US is like, no, we want to keep our country safe. It's like the opposite. While in Ukraine there are some people who are like, oh, it's difficult over here, like maybe I'll like go to another country to seek a better life. So it's like almost the opposite.
That's so hard. That's so sad.
So let me show you this like very small video of some more views of nature. Dorosh, Ukraine is my home.
Okay. This guy likes extreme sports, so clearly extreme sports. I mean, it's like some people think of Ukraine maybe not a good destination for extreme sports, and a part of like purpose of this video is like to show that one can do a lot of like fun stuff in Ukraine if one wants to travel and explore. I haven't been to many of those places. Like this makes me want to go and see those places as well. I did not think Ukraine would look like this. I pictured like it being like cold, snow, ice.
In a way, Ukraine is somehow more associated with Russia because of history, and northern Russia is indeed like very cold and snowy. And because of that, even though Ukraine like in terms of latitude is like same as an area between Ohio and Chicago, you know, so it's not like super like snowy.
Yeah,
it's not like Canada, you know. Yeah, that's why many people think it's like super cold there.
Yeah, I pictured it being like northern Russia, like everybody's wearing like fur coats and you know, but it's not. It's so beautiful.
I changed like 4 schools, and like sometimes, you know, when I would come to a new school, like I would feel like people have their own relationships. I almost felt like I'm not allowed to be a part of their community. I almost felt like I'm confident to express my personality and what I like, and sometimes like I feel Ukraine is like that among other countries, because many countries, you know, they have been there for a while. Like they don't even question like the fact of like deserving to take a part of territory in this world and to have their own nation. And I feel like many Ukrainians are almost like, you know, this kid who, you know, just appeared as independent over there or relatively recent, and it's like afraid to express itself. I used to say sorry so many times, like when talking to other people. It's like, oh sorry, like, oh sorry. It took me a while like to become more confident about where I'm from, because part of me also like felt sometimes not as confident as people from developed countries.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Interesting. Nationalism is not something that I really grew up with. I mean, I've always been surrounded. America is very like patriotic, very nationalistic. But I've always kind of like seen myself as kind of like an outsider to all that, just because of like the subculture I'm from, like in America. But I've always kind of found sense of like identity and like other things like other than my country. But it makes sense like that most people do. But yeah, it's really interesting.
I like what you say, because I think in a way I also wanted to be successful in what I'm doing in like finance, because I wanted to develop my identity in that area, and that helped me, you know, later to feel confident about other areas as well.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. For me, my sense of identity always kind of came from mostly like my spiritual values and stuff, and like my philosophical.
You have a favorite philosopher?
I say philosophical, but you know, like I'm a Christian, and that's like something that's really important to me, and something that I've always like found a really strong. I haven't experienced what, you know, as an American, like what Ukrainians have experienced, so I'm pretty sure it feels really different over there, which is why it kind of like stuck out to me that like people are very like open about their like spiritual and religious beliefs in Ukraine. I was like, oh, that's cool. I think spirituality and religion are like really can be really good things, and are really important. I like how open people are about like what their beliefs are, so I thought that was cool.
Thank you so much for reacting to this video.
Yeah, this is fun.
Thank you so much for reacting to this 40 facts about Ukraine.
Oh, you're welcome. This was quite interesting, and I'm so glad to be a part of it. I really thank you for that.
Дякую вам дуже за перегляд. Обов'язково підпишіться. Ваша підписка мотивує мене і далі робити відео з американцями, де вони реагують на Україну, українську культуру та музику. Дякую вам за перегляд і побачимося дуже скоро в наступних відео. Бай!